Hi boys and girls. So here's a little quick hardware rundown. Burl B32 analog summing mixer, Burl B2, Apogee Symphony 16x16, 16 in, 16 out. Another Apogee Symphony, this is 32 out. PCM 42, H3000, bunch of stuff. Aphex Aural Exciter with the big bottom, PV Cosmo, the rest is that stuff. Rev F 1176 and a Furman Punch 10. So real quick, I'll go through this. Basically, this is 16x16. This is what I track with. And Burl is actually, the Burl is 1 and 2, and then this is like 3 through 16. I circumvented the first two for the Burl. The Burl's really nice. This 32 out is normaled right into the Burl B32. So we break any normal to put in hardware, and then coming straight out of the Burl B32 is normaled right into the Burl B2, and that's how we print our mixes. I've gotten rid of quite a bit of hardware, replaced it with software equivalents. We'll get into that. Some of the hardware I kept because it just was my thing, was Lexicon PCM 42, usually quarter notes on lead vocals and guitar solos and stuff. H3000 set to split harmonizer. The Aural Exciter with the big bottom is inserted on toms. PV Cosmo is usually on bass, and Punch 10 is a subharmonic generator on kick and snare, and then vocals on the 1176, and there it is. Yeah, so there you go. Alright guys, so I am James Lugo. I am going to go over my new mix template. It's actually not new, it's revised. And I didn't invent this. This is just kind of a mishmash of things I've learned over the years and things that I like. And I'll start by saying I'm a student of mixing. I'm learning, so maybe we can all learn together. Here is the template. So basically you take this, when you finish a song, you track all the drums, the bass, the guitars, the vocals, pianos, everything, strings, shakers. When it's all finished, clean it up, do all the editing, do all the naming, you know, whatever you need to do, crossfade, delete out any tracks that are not going to be mixed, you know, hide, make inactive, get rid of the click, kill the master. And then you take and basically overlay this. So I'm going to go through this briefly for like 10 or 15 minutes maybe, and then we'll throw one over and you guys can see it. And we're live on Facebook, but this will be up on YouTube. Alright, so, and if you're on YouTube, like and subscribe, you know what I'm saying? Do that deal. Kick in is the first one. So on the kick in, all I have, I use Auto Align. I don't know if any of you guys know about Auto Align. It's a phasing program. I can't remember what company it's from, but it's very cool. Oh, Sound Radix. And it does something that you just can't do without something like this. I don't know if there's other companies that do it, but it's amazing. It really, it's not about like lining up, and it's way beyond that. So anyway, we do Auto Align on snare, overheads, toms, and kick. Usually don't do Auto Align on room mics because they're distant, and just kind of leave them be. So you'll see I've got kick in, here's kick out. Got an Auto Align, and kick trigger is copied over from that's the kick in, will go into the kick trigger. I put the Auto Align, I don't think it really matters. Snare top, snare bottom. I think we do it also on snare trigger. Again, I don't think it matters. And then toms, 1, 2, 3, and then overs. The main thing, and ride and hi-hat, and I kind of play it by ear. The main thing is that you get like snare and overheads. That's like really, it's an amazing program. I'll do a whole video on how we do it. I learned about it from Armando Avila. And he basically taught me and Johnny Wooten how to do it. It's really not that hard. You just got to know the procedure. But we got Auto Align on the drums, which really helps. It helps with really well tracked drums, and it helps really with unwell track drums. It's just good. It helps everything. It's just really nice. All right, so kick in has nothing on it because it's going over to the bus, which is basically an API Vision channel, a little compression, and kind of dial it in from there. It's just doing a little bit of that 500 cut, a little bump at 100, and then some top end depending on kind of how this all sounds. So this is kick in here. This is kick out. You know what I'll do? I'll go large so you can see. I'm just learning. I'm just kind of starting to do these, so bear with me. Kick out. Kick out, I put the little low pass, just kind of filtering out so you don't get too much of the drum set, because that can create a little bit of mushiness or or phase because it's going to be outside of the kit. And just to get the little doom, doom, doom. And then kick trigger is here, and that again has auto align, and then kick trigger, and I have a couple that I just put on there, and then I can switch them around. And what I do is I just take the kick out mic and I just copy that over to kick trigger. So I've got kick in, kick out, kick trigger. All three of these are busing over to kick sub, which here just has an API Vision, and it's got a little bit of room and plate and hall if I want. It's got punch 10, which is the Furman subharmonic generator. It's got also a kick and snare crush, which we'll get into as we progress down the line, and it's got also a key for the bass, in case sometimes when you're doing dance music you want the bass to duck a little. You want to kind of duck some things around with the kick. So there is kick. Now we've got snare top, again has auto align, snare bottom has auto align. I don't usually pull anything into these with anything on the track themselves like this. I'll add as I need it, but I've got a snare sub right here, which is a little Studer A800. Give it a little tape, again using the API Vision. I'm trying to stay consistent with that right now as my strip. The Neve, Andrew Sheps talks a lot about this on snare, the 220, the Neve EQ, and then I use this kind of trans wire. I don't even know really how much of that I use anymore. And then on this I've got again another little, it's to my room, my plate, and my hall, so I can add kind of whatever I want. But then I've got also this goes to kick and snare crush, and also then to my doubler, which we'll go through. I'm going to kind of blow through this and explain it as I go. Now you'll notice on the kick sub is here. Kick in through kick trigger go through kick sub, but with snare it's only snare top and bottom go through snare sub. Snare trigger is on its own track because snare trigger is stereo, because there's room emulations and there's whatever, there's reverb, so there's a stereo thing. So snare trigger is on its own thing. It'll have auto align, which again I don't know if it really matters much on snare trigger because it's, I don't know, we just do it. And then trigger, and I think this is just some CL, whatever, some trigger that we just put up there, but then I'll change it as I go. Again with the API Vision, that Neve, and then Vatso, I kind of get that going on. And then you come down here, I've got a little bit of room. Now here's where I've got this drum verb. This is a thing that I was taught by a guy that was showing me some stuff years ago, getting a nice drum verb that only goes with the trigger so that it's not triggering off like a lot of noise. It's just pa, 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 and you almost use that as a gas gauge to make the room bigger or smaller, but it's clean. You're not going to hear, things like, whatever, chairs squeaking and everything making noise. It's going to be very very sample accurate, very clean, phasey, not phasey. So there is drum verb. And again, this snare trigger also goes to the kick and snare crush and also to the doubler. We're getting some hearts and some stuff over here. This is crazy. Okay, let's see what we got. Okay, people are on. Okay, so now here is the kick and snare crush, which is just like an 1176 20-to-1, and it's hitting pretty hard. And that's it. So the kick goes through that, the kick sub, the snare sub, and the snare trigger all go through that. And this is huge. I mean, like if this is down, you get the kick sounding like doom, ga, dum dum ga, and as you bring this up, it's like douche ga, douche douche ga. Really important. Now the other thing that I've added, so these crush tracks or these parallel tracks are consistent through the whole template. You'll see it's all the same down the line. And honestly, I mean, I've learned a lot of this stuff off of Pure Mix. And it's really been powerful. A really, really great tool. I've also added a grit track. So this is now again, kick and snare is separate from like parallel drums. Parallel drums is just toms, overs, and rooms. So kick and snare kind of has its own thing. Just dum dum ga, you know. So kick grit, I have a decapitator. And this is like where you can kind of add some like some more intensity and some more energy. And I tell you this because when I started to get hip to this stuff a few years ago, when I was mixing a record for a pop guy, kind of a pop rock guy, and I couldn't beat the rough, and it was pretty humbling, a little depressing, to be honest with you. I could not beat the rough to save my life. So he was trying to help me, and he was like, oh, well, parallel it with, you know, decapitator or whatever. And needless to say, I never beat the rough, and I didn't get the gig. But it taught me a huge lesson about this. So when I started to watch these Pure Mix videos, and I started to implement this stuff, I realized, oh wow, this is awesome. When I do all this paralleling, it just gives you like really easy to access energy and hardness. You know, like just get that thing to just be like don't ga. Like I love it. So the grit track is a little bit different than the parallel compression. Usually what I'll do is get the parallel kind of like pretty good where I want it, and then I'll bring up the grit, and that just makes it even more evil. Now obviously if I was doing something like it sounded like Steely Dan or whatever, probably wouldn't use that, but for a lot of the stuff I do, which is like, you know, rock stuff and alternative rock and all this bro country, you know, they want this stuff to be just slamming. So there it is. So there's kick and snare kind of in a nutshell. I can already tell you this is probably going to go a lot longer than I thought it was, but there you go. So there's basically kick and snare. And then you come down to toms, tom 1, 2, and 3. Again, auto align. I put a little expander gate on it. I've been shying away a little bit from like chopping out toms all the time, just for flow, and just sometimes you're getting a lot of drums tracks that don't sound particularly awesome and ambient, and sometimes a little bit of toms mics kind of make the drums sound cooler. So I'm expanding them, meaning I'm not gating them, it's like it's ducking them. And then I have on each one of them I have a FabFilter EQ so that I can deal with each one of them EQ wise before they go to their subs. So get any of the womp, you know, whatever, like the lower one maybe getting out more like whatever 250, 300, and the higher one maybe more like 280, 340, or you know. So I can customize it as I go, and then all three of these toms come over to this tom sub, and we've got an API Vision, and then this is which is on the first video, the beginning of this, Oral Exciter with a big bottom is inserted, which gives it some nice riffs. And also on these, all the tracks you'll see are all solo safed, so when I solo this, I can hear through the tracks. Okay? And then I've got, again, room, plate, hall. I've got a separate tom verb down here next to my separate drum verb. Right here, drum verb, tom verb. The drum verb really basically is just a reverb for snare trigger, and the tom verb is kind of a different thing for the toms to give them a little bit of their own little weirdo-ness. And then tom sub goes to my drum crush, which is different from my kick and snare crush. And then also I go into the doubler. The doubler's there. I don't really ever use the doubler, but I don't know. It's just there. Why is it there? Why would I use doubler? Probably not. But now the next one down the line is overs, ride, and hi-hat, which all go into this overs sub. So if I go overs, ride, and hi-hat, this auto align, this overs auto align is very important that you really get this banging nicely with the kick and snare. And then hi-hat and ride auto align. And I do audience perspective, so I have everything set up, you know, like the ride's over here, and, you know, based on whatever you're looking at, you'll see it's panned. And then I do a little basic EQ on kind of the hi-hat and ride, and I change it whenever as it comes there. And then I come into my API Vision, and you'll see because of all the paralleling, I don't necessarily have to like overly process the sub, because I've got all this other stuff kind of going on down the line. On this one, I've got a room, a plate, a hall. Again, to the drum crush, you'll see the tom sub, the over sub, and the room sub all have this drum crush, which is about unity gain. I'm hitting it a little bit harder than I had been in the past. Overs, I also put the little split harmonizer. Sometimes I like a little split harmonizer. It gives the overs a little, not flangey, but like a little washy, cool vibe. Then I've got room and staircase, and this is set up for my old, actually it's not even stairs. Why did it even say stairs? It's really bathroom. Well, whatever. But it doesn't matter. If whatever comes in goes, whatever rooms come in go into this room. Again, the tracks are solo saved. I've got auto align on the room mic, but again, I don't think I usually use it. I just let it go. Then I go to the room sub. I've got, again, an API Vision. And, you know, room, a plate, and hall. It depends. And then this all goes to the drum crush. And again, this is all just up there. I don't necessarily use it all or use any of it, or sometimes I use a lot of it. But it's all there. Then I've got next to this is my drum verb, which is an EMT plate, which I really kind of usually toggle between A and B. A is a little bit more... It's not... B is darker. B's more serious. B's a little more like, A is a little more neutral. I usually start with A, and then if I need more stank, I go B, and then you can extend it and do all that stuff. And then I've got for my tom verb, this is kind of off of a little bit of an Andrew Sheps thing. It's like a big ambient reverb, so it's a little bit separate, which I don't always use, or sometimes I use a little bit of it. Then you come here and I've got drum crush, which remember all these drums here were coming to drum crush. And I've got a Fatso Jr. hitting pretty hard. Oh, the other thing too, on kick crush, you'll see kick and snare crush is importing through the bus kick and snare. And kick and snare grit is also going in kick and snare, or also busing into it, kick and snare. So I just turn it up. But if I decided I only wanted snare and no kick, I would just set up a separate bus right on the fly and be done with it. So there it is, drum crush, drum grit. And that's your basic drum template. Again, a lot of this stuff I got from, you know, watching those guys, you know, Fab and Andrew Sheps and Ben over there. So I'm not taking credit for this. This is just kind of, I mean, I've adapted some of it to my taste, but this is a lot of their thing. All right, so there's drums. Percussion, sub, you would just throw whatever percussion into that. I've just got a little SSL on this, nothing really too exciting. Bass sub, our basses are gonna come through here. I do the API Vision, and this is that side chain for the kick drum for like dance music. And then I've got with bass is, I've got a bass crush here, which is obviously separate from drums. And the other thing too, I think, yeah, like on percussion, I send the percussion out the drum sub. But sometimes percussion through too much parallel gets to be a little too crazy. Sometimes I like it just kind of a little more natural. But bass here, I know I'm really scattery. I've never done this before. So please just bear with me. It's a little bit of a weird thing to explain because I don't explain it a lot. So it's like I know more about just how to do it than I know like all the like how to like run the terminology like really accurately all the time. I know the terminology, but I'm getting, you know, I think I'm getting nervous and it's like, oh God, you know, I don't know what to say. So anyway, but here's bass sub, and the bass is going to go again to a bass crush and a bass grit. And also sometimes on the bass tracks, I'll put a little Sans amp or, you know, some sort of an amplitude. and also make sure within the framework of my bass tracks, if there's an amp and DI or Kemper or whatever, make sure polarity and phase, and do my best with time adjusters and trim knobs and phases to get it to be as in time, in tune, in phase and polarity as I can. And then coming out of this bass track, here's my my API, and then I go to a bass crush, which is this. Again with that. Smack. I don't know, man. I've had this forever. This came in a massive pack that I bought when I bought my Pro Tools rig like 12 years ago, and I just love it on bass. I don't know. I've always used it. It's kind of nasty, and I hit it pretty good. And then my bass grit, I just went with Old Devil Lock. And man, with these two parallels, you get your bass happening, and you get it in phase and everything, and you get a decent bass sound. You can go extreme real quick with these two gas pedals, man. They really are nice together. And just watch sometimes with phase. I've noticed every now and then, not so much, or not with Devil-Lock, but I've noticed occasionally with Decapitator, it's almost like it somehow flips the phase, and you've got to flip the phase in Decapitator. So, you know, as you turn it up, if it starts to sound hollow or coming out of a can, experiment with either a phase flip on the plugin, or you can always add a trim plugin and do phase. Now, here is our mix return. Well, you know what? We'll save the center section for last. Now we come down and we've got guitar 1, guitar 2. These are just subs, so all my guitars. Guitar 1 is usually all my main rhythms. Guitar 2, maybe if there's like some echo or trem guitar. Guitar 3 is if maybe there's an arpeggio on one side with a Telecaster that has a completely different sound. And then I've got a solo here, and I've got an acoustic sub, and for keyboards. And again, I don't always use all these. Sometimes I just use 1 or 2 guitars and there's no solo and there's no, but it's all here. The guitar subs are all basically about the same. I put this little, the slate tape. I love this, man. The Soft Tubes Trident with, I mean, it's got 8K and 5K. I mean, it's just, this is such a great EQ for guitars. And then I just do like a CLA 76, and then I do usually like a BX shred spread, and that's on all of these, but I won't necessarily use them all. But this is my favorite that I've found so far, and I have been on the hunt of how to get these guitars wide. Now obviously there's things you can do with tracking, getting different sounds, but like just for purely like when it sits in here, how to get it wide, I love this. I mean, this is a great company, this Brainworks. These guys they got some voodoo. And then I've got all my effects here. They're all on there. Nothing's instant, you know, nothing, everything's on off. But, you know, I've got room. These are basically my 10 effects that are at the end, that are my stock effects that go with every mix. And then I can switch them out and alter them and change things up. But this is basically room, and they go from smaller to bigger. Room is a smaller reverb. Plate is a little bit bigger reverb. Hall is a bigger reverb, and then Hall 2 is just like, it's like, what is it? The Valhalla. It's like you're inside of, you know, a cathedral. And I find too, you know, that especially like when you're doing a lot of demos for people, man, they just want everything just super wet. It isn't really necessarily my thing, but you know, you got to do what you got to do. So that's how I got hooked on this Hall thing, this Hall 2. So I'm like, I'm just tired of like messing with all this. I just want, okay, you want sauce, you got sauce. We'll get onto it down the line. So it's room, plate, Hall 2, then it's slap, eighth, quarter. So you've got slap, and again on the video, it's going to be screen captured, so you'll be able to see all of this really more accurately. Or acutely, I guess, depending on how you look at it. Slap being shortest, eighth being the next one, quarter, and a quarter is my PCM 42 usually. Quarter delay, then I go to which then there's usually a half delay, but in this I took it out because this is where I send my Music Crush. So if I want a half delay, I've got to just pop it in there. And then doubler, which is plugins set up to sound like an H3000, and then split harmonizer is my H3000. Set to 508. It's the you know, the doubler of the millennium. So there it is, guitar 1, guitar 2. Again, all my tracks would bus to guitar 1, let's say. They would all be solo safed, and then widen them, EQ them, do whatever you want to them. Guitar 1, again, maybe like my main rhythms. Guitar 2, secondary. I don't do the widener. I don't do the shred spread on the solo. An acoustic is Pro Q, a little tape, the API Vision. I love that on acoustic. And then here I do this Nugent widener, which like in a dense mix, this really makes the acoustic sound cool, but it makes them, you can hear it. So in something like singer-songwriter where it's just acoustic, I would either go with nothing, I would take this out, or if I wanted a little widener, I would just use you know, the or the Waves Imager, because it doesn't really add much. It doesn't have any real sound. And then keys is again a little tape machine, SSL, and there's your Imager. I'll pull that. I'll drag that over to acoustic guitar a lot, or do nothing. Now all of these have a Music Crush, and again you can adjust how much. Like you may want the heavy guitars to really be slamming the Music Crush. You may not really want any of the keys on it or whatever. So you would adjust it there. And then you've got Music Crush, which again is an 1176. I think this is all buttons in, hitting pretty hard. And then I've got again a Music Grit, which is I just use Devil Lock. This gives me a little bit more. And again, they're both bussing in through the M Crush, the MCR bus, but if I decide I only want one thing through the Music Grit, then I would just on the fly add a separate bus. But it just comes in defaults like that. Moving on down the line, vocals. Here are 3 vocal subs, and this is set up kind of like the Brauer multi-bus. I've got V1 sub, V2 sub, V3 sub. Simplest way is V1 is probably the verse. V2 maybe the pre-chorus or the chorus, and if it's the pre-chorus then V3 would be the chorus. If V2 is the chorus, then maybe V3 would be the bridge, and then that gives me the opportunity to give them all their own treatment, EQ, everything, reverbs, delays, and then all of them are set up with the same thing. Pro Q first. I've been learning about this on the Ben, the guy from Pure Mix, talks about like cleaning up the vocal first in the chain, and I like it. Ben, I can't think of his name, Ben something, and then de-esser, and then I do like a little tube tech. This is like, and I just hit this light. This is just like little softening of control, little pull tech, and then the Mag EQ. Oh man, that EQ, wow. But we'll get into that when we mix. This, and again, I set this up and I may pull this mag and put something else on. This is just some garden variety stuff. And then again, going from smaller to bigger, room, plate, hall 2, slap, eighth, quarter, half delay, then doubler and split harmonizer. Okay, now, so again, V1 is probably, let's just say verse, V2 is chorus, V3 is bridge. Bridge may have some other weird effect on it, whatever. All of these are outputting. They're not busing. These are outputting to V main. These are my 2 V mains right here. One is my insert from my Rev F 1176, and the other is a Fairchild plugin. And I basically took time and I got them to hit pretty much identical and output pretty much identical. So as you drive it more, they both bury the same, they both do whatever, and obviously you can adjust it, but they pretty much mirror each other. And then on both of them I've got a Vocal Crush and a Shimmer. Vocal Crush and a Shimmer, Vocal Crush and a Shimmer. So this is where they come out. So this is the only one where the sub is also solo saved. So the vocals are solo saved. Here the subs are solo saved. That's why they're pink, purple, because they're a little bit different. And then they solo save so that when I come over here and I solo my 1176 and my Fairchild, my vocals pass through. and then they are coming out to these three subs. Vocal Crush, which is 1176, all buttons in. Vocal Shimmer at the end here is the Slate Revival, which is kind of like what a lot of people would do. Like they use oral exciters for that. Gives it like almost like a presence knot. Really, really nice to add to the vocals. And then I've also got a Vocal Grit here, which is a double lock. Same thing. So there's a lot of paralleling on vocals, but you know, you're doing this pop stuff and this, you know, this country rock pop. Everybody wants the vocal, just like so you got if you want it, right? Vocal Grit again is bussing in through the Vocal Crush. So again, if you only want to grit on one thing, you could switch the bus on the fly. In between this is QT. That's quarter throw. So you'll see on the vocals here, 1, 2, and 3, instead of it being the bus here, the bus for, where is it? Where am I? Why am I having so many problems? Like, right, it's not the, you'll be able to see this on the video. It's not the quarter, but it's not the quarter note bus. It's this QT. So what happens is these now, and I pretty much set them, I guess it's just kind of unity gain. They are now busing to this QT, which is then outputting to the delay. So what happens is I can set this up, you know, do the scroll into view, and I can set it up in touch mode, and I can do throws on my Huey, quarter note throws, because you can't really throw like that with a bus. You have to have a track. So that's kind of a way I circumvent it. I did it the other day for the first time with this new template, and I got to tell you, it was working kind of weird, and I don't know. I got to see what's going on. Let me just check this really. Scroll into view if everything's going good here. Yeah, it's working. I don't know. It just seemed weird. I don't know. Anyway, moving on down the line. So there's my shimmer. Then I've got a background vocals, you know, for all my stereo harmonies and backups, and, you know, same kind of thing. Same thing, except I put the imager at the end, get the width. I'll put, a lot of times I'll do a little split harmonizer on this one, and it's got the usual, and then it has bus out to 8182, which is my background vocal Crush, which is the same thing, you know. And then you just, and again, on the fly, you can change all these things. Keep moving. I don't think I'm going to be able to get this into a session. This is a lot of talking, man. 22, 32, 40. Yeah, no, we're half out. We're done. We'll have to do a second. We'll do another video later on. Then you come down here, and here are my 10 effects. I've got my room. First, my room, my plate, my hall. That's a nice. That's that UAD lexicon. My hall 2. That's bigness. That's everywhere. That's a bunch of that. It's a bunch of hoot now. That's the best, like, $49 plugin. I'm telling you, man. Valhalla and Massey. Those guys, that's some heavy medicine. And then slap, eighth. My quarter is PCM 42 hardware, and half. And you'll see on these delay, I personally just like H delay. And what I did was I put trim knobs in front of all this, because the thing I was finding was, like, the PCM 42 is so loud that, like, you know, you've got kind of a vibe going with the 42, you know, and then, like, if let's say the 42 is here, I'll put it here so you can, like, you know, if you want the same thing with the eighth note, you got to go up, like you got to take it to the roof. So I'm like, nah, I want to get this kind of even. They're still not as loud as the PCM 42, but they're pretty darn close. So now it's like, if I get it up halfway, it's there. Because before, the way it was set up, I was running my delays so high at the end, and then if I wanted more, it was like, oh, forget about it. So that's it. So slap, I went up to 114. I don't know. I was doing like the 74, 78 thing for a long time, and I don't know. Just went to 114. These are the eighth and the hall are all locked to grid. Doubler. My buddy, me and Jameson replicated my H3000 that we sold to Steve Patterson, who's on here. We replicated it really well with plugins. That sounds pretty much exactly like my PCM or my H3000 hardware in doubler mode. Split harmonizer, that's a different beast. We kept it. I couldn't get. There was no software that I could get to sound as good. There was no software I could get to sound as good as the harmonizer, and there was no software I could get to sound as good as the PCM42. And I tried a lot of it, and I own a lot of it, and it's all great, but those pieces just have their own thing. And then I have last three down here at the end. This is the Punch 10. This is distortion. This is a decapitator one that's always been there. I don't think I'm really going to even use this anymore, but it's still there. Because now I've got all my parallel, I've got my distortion on my crunch tracks. My Punch 10, that's a fast-acting subharmonic generator for kick and snare. That thing is that's another piece of hardware that it's almost impossible to find them. If you ever get a chance to get, Steve, you ever get a chance to get a Punch 10, buy it. It's I bought mine. Somebody hunted it down on some forum that had been like defunct. It was some old tape-op kind of forum, and somebody had it up for sale like 2 years prior. And they're like, hey, I remember this dude. And he sent me the link, and I was able to find the guy through like MySpace or I don't know what the heck. And I'm like, hey, do you still have that Punch 10? He's like, you're not going to believe it, but nobody ever bought it. I'm like, I'll buy it. I think I got it for like $125. That thing is bad to the bone. It's in the beginning of the video. That's doom, ga, doom, doom. Where the Cosmo's better for bass, because the Cosmo, that's the one next to it. The Cosmo is more undulating and like moving. Oh, yeah, these are inserted. Yeah, so yeah, there's just a little low cuts, but that's it. That's the basic mix template. I use a little bit of heat, and again, all this stuff is interchangeable, but that gives you an idea of the whole deal. And then you come here, and I've got one. See, that's 80. That's pretty much my processing power on my Octo card, which I have a quad card that died. So, and they told me I called Universal Audio, and they said it's probably useless. Once they die, they're dead. So he says you're better off just giving up. Yeah. So there you go. And obviously, if I run out of gas, I can pull something off and use Waves or whatever. It doesn't matter. But there it is. There's the template. I'm not going to try to fly this in because we're already at about a half an hour. You know what I'll do? I'll do the next video will be importing template and mix prep, or mix prep importing template. And then we'll go through the whole preparation, and then the third one will be the mixing of that song. So, yeah, there it is. Oh, the center section. Oh, shoot. I'm so sorry. This is my first time ever doing anything like this. So, all of that, well, yeah, I guess... Jeez, I don't know how well I explained all this. Keep in mind, guys, I'm just a musician, man. Okay. So there's 32 outs coming out of one of my apogees, and that is normaled into my Burl B32, which on the patch bay I break the normal to put in what little hardware I have, and then the Burl B32 is normaled right it's normaled right into the B2. So I print on the B2. So this is my mix return track right here. See it? And then this is my mix print track. And between the mix return and the mix print, I have a trim knob that is DSP so that I can put this in I mode and the plugins stay activated. I do a little, the UAD tape machine. This thing is great. This BrainWorks stereo, whatever, Modus EQ BX1. Wow. And on here, I've got the VSC2, and I've got these all set kind of basic, so that, they're just kind of working like an SSL. And then a Mag EQ, which this thing is just ridiculous. This is like probably the single most insane plugin. I mean, other than maybe Trigger and BX Shred Spread. There's a few of them, but this thing is ridiculous. It sounds so good. And the VSC is really nice, though. I did mix a song this week, a country tune. When did I mix it? Yesterday? Yeah. When it was all said and done, I just kind of went back to the Waves SSL, and I just left, I don't know, I just liked the way that sounded. It just sounded right to me. I also like the Slate, it's not, I call it the Slate Red, but it's not the red that's the horizontal, it's in the vertical in the mix. Here, I don't know if I can find it. And do multi-mono on stereo compressors so that they don't work together. Where is it? Oh, but this is the one that doesn't. Right. Give me a second. I'll get it. Oh, virtual mix rack. This dude. I like this too. VG401. That's really nice. So right now I'll use either this Waves SSL, just the bus compressor, or this VSC. And then I have a master track here too that the buses over from this, I guess. So I can actually see, like, so here you'll see they're deinstantiated, but here's like my little master chain, for when I'm listening to it, like I want it to be more radio volume. When this is in I mode, it doesn't show the level with the plugins. This one does, so I can literally see how hot it is. So I can get it right before we're all about to explode and die from like nuclear waste, and then I just turn it down like 1/10 of a dB. I wish I was joking. Welcome to 2017. And then usually right next to this master track, I'll pull in my refs track. And then I have analog 1 and analog 2 on my Avocet, and then I can go between, listening to whatever, Three Doors Down or Britney Spears or Van Halen or whatever, and then listen to the track. And then here's my center section. 8 tracks, just like an SSL. These are VCA. So if you don't know what that is, voltage control, attenuation, whatever, the signal doesn't go through this. It's really like just grouping. So if you want to like turn the drums all down, there you go. And you'll see all the reds. These are attached to all the subs. So watch. See? Boom. Oh, bass. Boom. And then down the line. So I've got drums, bass, music. There's obviously the music, solo, any solos, vocals, background vocals, effects, and master VCA. So these 8 can end up being at the end just what you've got going on. Let me check this out. All of you. Yep, it's working. The VCAs, you can kind of especially when you're working on a large format SSL, it's a big endeavor. And when you start working, you're like, oh, I want to do this gate to kick drum. Oh, wait a second, I want to do this over here. And you're kind of like walking back and forth for a while. It's kind of like cardio. But then as the mix starts to rifle in and everything starts to come together, you end up in the center, and then you're mixing just in the middle, because you get your VCAs for your whole mix, because you've already got, unless you all of a sudden you're like, oh, there's just too much top end on the hi-hat or whatever, then you got to go over and do it. But other than that, you're kind of more in the middle, and then usually you put your vocal right here. So, so it's like, the old vocals on 25 type of thing, where it's 1 through 24, center section, and then your lead vocal. And sometimes 26 would be like your quarter note delay throw or whatever. Anyway, but I set this up like this when I originally did this, when I was going to sell my SSL, because I had been mixing like that for a number of years, and I got accustomed to it and I liked it. So there it is. Crazy, huh? It looks like a lot. So here's the beautiful part about this. It takes me about 10 minutes to set up a mix. I've gotten very fast at it. I've got it down to a science. That'll be the next video. It takes me about 10 minutes to set up a mix. It takes me maybe 5 minutes or so, 10 minutes maybe tops, to get good levels, like to get everything hitting up to, get the subs where they need to be against the tracks, depending on where compressors are going, get a little tweak, and then sometimes it takes like another 10 minutes. And I mean, you're 30 minutes into this thing and it sounds good. So it sounds like a pain in the butt, but it's actually really saves a lot of time, and then it's quick. So like 20, 30 minutes, it's already sounding good, maybe another hour or so. Finishing it off, a lot of times when I do like a full record or an EP, I'll finish the first song, I'll send it to them, they'll call me back, like, yeah, it sounds cool, but we want it's a little brighter here, and can you turn the vocals up and make that wetter, and that's more kick drum or whatever. I make adjustments, send it out. Okay, this is great, except do this, do that. Third one, boom, whatever, they're like, this is perfect. Okay, beautiful. Now I'll take that mix and I will then import that template into the remaining songs. And, obviously it makes it like quick, so the mixes are better because you're moving, and it also gives the record continuity. So there you have it. Subscribe and like. And then you would just put that in record mode, and there's your print. The next video will be setup and import of template. But everybody's sick here, so let's see if I can get through this. My wife's got strep. Let's see if we can get through this. If we can get through this, maybe we'll do it at the end of the week. All right, y'all? All right, so I'm going to stop. So, subscribe and like.